If you've got momentum in your coaching, consulting, expert business, and perhaps you're looking to minimize the workload that you're doing as well as scale in a very sustainable way, that's why I put this video together. Now, before I dive in, welcome to the channel. My name is Jamie Gardiner. Over the last umpteen years, since 2011, I've been a coach, consultant, affiliate marketer, you name it. I feel like I've pretty much had a crack at it at this point. So what I do here on this channel is really just me documenting the last 15 odd years that I've been online, hopefully helping you guys cut through some of the BS that's out there to build a sustainable business online. So if that's of interest, I'd love to have your support. Feel free to drop any comments, hit the like button, and of course, feel free to subscribe if that's of interest to yourself. Little tiny caveat before I do dive into it though, my channel's not very fancy, my editing is not very fancy, and if you can look past that, hopefully you'll be able to find a ton of value in some of the stuff that I put out as well. All that being said, let's dive into my incredibly fancy presentation that I've put together. These are just a couple of notes I jotted down regarding some things you probably want to consider if you are at that point where you've started getting traction. Maybe you're at 5, 10, 15K per month and you're just sitting there facing a bottleneck. You're not entirely sure how to overcome that in order to get to both the next rung of the ladder from a revenue perspective, but more importantly, simplifying your operations down such that you're not spending 80 to 100 hours per week in your business. You're able to actually extract yourself from the business a little bit, even as a solopreneur, without necessarily building out a big team, all that type of stuff as well. Like I say, if that's of interest, that's kind of what I talk about here. Right, let's just get rid of this, my fancy editing. Right, so who's this for? Like I say, if you're someone that is currently making sales, you're getting clients, you're seeing results. First of all, the 0 to 1 part of this game is the fucking hardest shit you'll have to face, in my opinion. I think the 0 to 1, because the mental stuff you have to go through in order to be able to start to attract clients and to teach yourself how to sell and to follow the instructions of your coach and mentor to get to that point. I think it's really, really hard, and I've seen it play out with so many individuals where they're on the verge of quitting, and then bang, something clicks into place and they start making sales. So first and foremost, if you've stuck that out, congratulations. You've obviously followed a really cool pathway to get there, and kudos to you. Most people won't make it that far, to be perfectly honest. And, it's not through lack of resources, not through lack of intelligence either. It's one of those things where it's getting harder and harder. And I think a lot of the time, there's a program or some sort of situation at play, and what may have worked years down previously is not something that works to the same degree nowadays. So if you got to that point, congratulations. Now, did a video recently on that actually, and it's basically where my ethos on that is either you expand or evolve. Okay, so you either expand or evolve, and so I think you get to this point where you create some momentum, but then it creates blind spots for you, and you can't really see a lot of the time. You can't see the forest for the trees, as it were. And so the evolution is basically where, especially from a brand perspective, you kind of rebuild yourself, or you re-engineer something that maybe the next big thing. And some of the brands that do it really well, the likes of Frank Kern, for example, he's one of my idols, I must admit. But the dude just seems to reinvent things all the time. So you need to go that way. That's the evolution part. I personally find that quite hard. I think if I've found myself ingrained into a way of doing stuff, I know that my business has stalled as a result of trying to figure out how to evolve. The other way that you can do it, of course, is just expand. And what I mean by that is doubling down on what has worked previously. But there is also technically a third option, which I did discuss in another video previously. But I just wanted to give you guys a bit of an insight as to my thoughts regarding that as well. So, like I say, momentum does create new blind spots. And this is where, as entrepreneurs, we need to basically go, okay, am I going to get stuck at this plateaued level forever, or am I going to grow both as a human and an entrepreneur and my business as well, right? So the problem is that the patterns that built your current momentum, so the hustle, and let's just face it, the 0 to 1 part of this game is a lot of it is just really raw hustle. You just got to work, right? And a lot of people just don't want to. They see people that maybe even like myself. I'm not too sure if I'm a negative influence when it comes to that, but people that have lifestyle businesses where you don't have to work a trillion hours as much as you perhaps used to when you first started out, I will confess and say that I still work a lot. I enjoy what I do, and it's something that I don't think I'll ever relinquish either, because I enjoy it. But that first phase, when you're going from that 0 to 1, it is just raw hustle. You also have control over everything, where you feel like you need to have control over everything. And I know for myself, I found myself very, very reactive along the way, and I was frustrated at that. I didn't want to be reactive to things, but I found that certain things would pop up, and I would have an overreaction sometimes, and just the floods of humanity that you're dealing with. I lacked the emotional maturity at that time in order to not be so reactive about things, right? And I do regret some of that along the way, but it is something that, especially if you're in initial stages, and what I mean, and this is coming back to, I'm going to go off topic ever so slightly here, starting to talk about some woo-woo stuff. But if you think about, law of attraction, blah, blah, and where a lot of that reactivity comes from, in my opinion, at least anyway, is that if you are lacking in opportunity, right? If you've got tons of cash flow, tons of leads, tons of things happening, you don't really care. You're not as reactive. You're more prepared to let things go. I think the times that I have been really reactive is usually when things aren't working the way that I think they should. And in doing so, what I found is I shrink my own thinking down. I start to think really limited. I'm like, oh, damn it, I lost another lead. Smite the earth, damn it. And, I'm just doing myself a disservice, because I know that's not the truth. I know that all I need to do is just let things go a lot easier. And like I say, that comes with business maturity as well a lot of the time. But that's what tends to happen in the initial stages. And then you end up just doing more stuff, because you think, okay, well, I need to, someone like Jamie put out a video saying I need to minimize my risk. So I better make sure I'm on every damn social media platform there absolutely is, in order to minimize that risk, or find the next big platform that I can potentially blow up on that is going to be easier than the platform that I'm currently on, right? So a lot of the time we just do more of that stuff. And so the problem is that that's not the patterns that are going to get you to sustainable growth. Those patterns don't work. And you might be feeling this yourself. You might be at that level where you're like, I'm capped out. Like, I just, I don't know what else to do. And you're not alone, right? Like, there's different levels to this game. I've gone through that a lot of the time with my own business. And it's just part of the game you have to go through, right? And so part of figuring that out is then solving for the next level of problems that will arise. So the problem is that they will burn you out, or you plateau. That's certainly happened with me. I'd love to say otherwise, but it has happened at different times. Or as some of us know, the online marketing game kind of goes like this, right? You have a big month, and then things aren't as great the next month, and so on and so forth. So your scaling trajectory doesn't sort of go linear. It's usually like that, right? And so sometimes when you get stuck at the earlier stages and you're hovering between 5-10K per month, then that will sometimes you end up plateauing and thinking, what am I doing wrong? This is just crazy. And a lot of the time it is for these reasons that I just mentioned as well. Now, I've been there, like I say. I'd love to say that I haven't been, and this is all just me talking based off what I've written in a book, but this is my real world experience that I've gone through this, hence why I'm just being super transparent about some of the things that have happened, and my own reactivity and various things as well. So I remember the very first time it happened, and it happened more than once as well, but I had my first 10K month, very, very long time ago now. And I thought, man, I'll just double down. I'll just, what? I just assumed it would go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100. And, I didn't think I'd cap out. I just assumed. And so what happened was the first 10K month I had, I was like, yeah, okay, next month's going to be 20. And I think I hit about 6K from memory. Like it was like a bit of a yo-yo. And things cracked. And I started feeling like a lack of abundance first and foremost, and I started feeling like, oh, this is kind of like not really what I want to do. And my energy dropped. I went from this abundant, fun, sort of enjoying the whole process energy, to then energetically I shrunk, and I was like, what am I doing? This sucks. And I ended up I basically pulled resources from my audience, right? And what I mean by that is and this is something that happens, and you'll find that happens after a big launch. So if you've ever done any launch of any kind, doesn't matter if it's low ticket or high ticket, doesn't matter, right? It's the same thing. So what happens is you're building up this equity in your audience. So you're giving stuff, I'm giving value here. Hopefully some of you that do have traction, some of you are going, oh, yeah, this is pretty cool. There's a few light bulb moments that are going off, and so therefore that is my intention, right? I'm helping you out. And so that happens. You build this momentum, you build the thing, and you're withholding your offers. And so you're building up this emotional energy within your audience, and you're just like, yeah, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And then you do a launch, and you're like, hey, I've got this thing, you should buy it, it's amazing. And so then, people jump into it, and you make a bunch of cash a lot of the time. And then what happens is you've pulled the emotional resources out of your audience, so emotional and obviously cash flow as well. So therefore, the next month, a lot of the time, it's not like that, right? Unless you've built a recurring business, which it's a whole other beast. There are some really good stuff and really bad stuff about recurring. I'll go into another time, but it's not, again, a recurring business is not linear the way that it gets sold either. It's not just like, hey, I'm just consistently hitting 50K months on all recurring. Yeah, there are exceptions to that rule, but for the most part, I believe, from a personal branding membership, high ticket recurring type business, I think it's going to be quite wavy with drop offs and different things like that, especially if you're doing it from an organic perspective. I think if you have ads and you've got some sort of mechanism, it's a little bit different, but that can be quite costly to get into that side of things as well. Now, my fulfillment became inconsistent, and I was still showing up. I still had the energy to show up. I was still like following people up and whatnot. But what tended to happen, and this is something that I've had to learn over the years, is like, I thought people wanted knowledge and guidance and direction as part of my coaching. A lot of the time, people wouldn't want that. They would just want a kick in the pants and to be fucking motivated. And I'm like, that's not me. I can't stand the idea. Like, if I'm more motivated about your goals than you are, and you need me to follow you up to chase you about your goals, like that to me that was an energy drain for me. I'm not wired like that. I don't have that thing where I need motivation, and so I found that really, really tricky, and it was something that I had to learn. And I found that there were certain clients that, yeah, they had the money to pay and all that type of stuff. That was cool, but then there was an energy mismatch where I was like, "What? Great, let's do it," and they're like, "Okay," and they'll do nothing because they get stuck in their own mind, or they needed motivation to get me to like, let's do the work, shall we? Like, that's not business. That's just, if you don't have that motivation, then I'm sorry, but business is absolutely not for you, right? If you need accountability and stuff, a lot of people do, and there's probably an entire sub business that you could create by offering accountability, but it's just not something that I believe in. If you need motivation to be involved in your own business, that's not for you. And I came to learn that it wasn't the systems, it wasn't what I was doing. I was the bottleneck. So the uncomfortable truth about all this is, to grow past this point, you have to let go of being the technician. You have to let go of like doing all the stuff all the time, and you have to kind of become the architect, as it were. So you have to let go of becoming the technician, become the architect. So you want to like look more strategically, more 30,000-foot view at your business and where you're heading. And then, just be brutally honest, like, is this where I want to head and the way that I want to head with this style of business that I'm creating right now? And there's nothing wrong with that. If you're happy doing what you're doing, kudos, it's amazing, right? But don't assume things are going to get better if you're like, burnt out from doing sales calls at the moment. It's not going to get any easier. The only options that you have are either expand or evolve. So the expansion either comes from hiring a closer, for argument's sake, or a setter or whatever, and that's the expansion part, which then means you're having to manage a team, and you're sure you might get some energy back because you don't have to do those tasks anymore, but then your close rate's going to go down, and then you have to monitor what they're saying. You have to monitor, make sure the closers aren't saying this outlandish shit, and likewise with the setters, right? So there's nuances and complications to that. You do also have to think more about your vision and not just the immediate as well, right? Like, how am I going to eat this month? You have to think about, okay, well, what's happening in 3 to 5 years' time? Do I still want to be doing this in this format? How can I start to construct the business that I want now for 5 years' time, right? How do I want to be in 5 years' time? So start thinking about these things. And it's about doing less but better, right? Like, I work really hard and I enjoy it, but it's a choice, right? I could do a lot less than I do now, but I'm enjoying where I'm at in life at the moment. I'm enjoying what I'm doing, enjoying being able to serve people, but because of the skill that I've been able to gain over the years, I'm also doing what I am doing at certain levels of volume, but I'm doing it better than I would have done 3-5 years ago as well. You can also delegate what's working. This one's really hard because what happens is we often get stuck up here where was it? I put a note up here. Da, 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 da. Yeah, systems correct. No, that's not it. Yeah, the control element, right? It ties back to the control element, sorry. And basically, that is where a lot of the time, in order to delegate something out to someone else, you have to relinquish control. And from an ego based perspective, it is really hard for a lot of people to do because let's face it, like no one is going to do the job the way that you want, as good as you want. And it's freaking hard to then accept that you just have to let go of doing that in the way that you are used to doing it, right? And then optimize what's breaking. We aim to we have to optimize. We have to basically create efficiencies within that, or there is actually an alternative. And the alternative is not super complex. We basically start to put constraints around what you're doing, so you simplify it, and then that way you don't necessarily need to outsource. You don't need to expand. Like I say, you can evolve. Um, and this is where going back to the 30,000 foot view. This is where you start to future pace yourself 3 to 5 years time. Where do I want to be? Um, and create that lifestyle now. Start to put those constraints around your decision making processes. So, for example, I took thousands of sales calls over my online and offline career. Sold. I'm going to blindly assume, I don't actually know the exact figure that I would have sold offline, but I'm going to say it's in excess of 10 figures, 8 figures. Sorry. I guesstimated years ago that it would have been maybe 20 to 30 mil, right? And bearing in mind, this is like 12 plus years of me being involved in sales. I worked in all sorts of random sales capacities as well. And the one that probably was responsible for the biggest gain would have been in the finance industry, basically. So we're selling, getting people to trade financial trading accounts, right? So that's why the big figure there. And again, that is a pure guesstimate, but I would say it's in excess of 8 figures anyway. From offline, less so from online. Call it like 7 figures, something like that. Fewer by Zoom meetings and sales calls, right? But I got burnt out. The biggest month I ever had. No, actually, sorry, second biggest month I ever had. I booked, I think it was like 55, 56 sales calls, something like that. Might have been 58. And I was just absolutely freaking cooked because not only that, I had to then do one-on-one coaching sessions. I had to do group coaching sessions. I think I was taking 3 group coaching sessions at the time. So I had a Tuesday and a Thursday, I think it was. Plus I was doing a Wednesday Q&A session as well with another program I was with. And I was cooked, right? And then trying to sell as well as that. So 2 very significantly different parts of your brain in operation. So I got to that point where I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do these sales calls. I want a blank calendar where if I want to do some work, I'm going to do it. If I don't want to do some work, I'm just going to bugger off and do other things, right? Now, like I say, full confession, I do work really hard now, but because I want to, because I like it, because I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm enjoying the kind of Rubik's Cube that is this process that I'm going through at the moment, right? And organising the other thing is I also have 4 businesses that I manage with my wife, so therefore that keeps us both quite busy as well. Clearly, if I had less, then I'd be doing less, right? But that's the constraints that you need to put around it. So how do I achieve the goal that I want without doing the things that I don't want to do? So in my case, I didn't want to do sales calls anymore. I didn't want, like, I love creating content, but sometimes it would be nice if I didn't have to create content. So maybe that's a constraint that I add in. It could be that I built a 7-figure business by DMing people, but I got tired of that. It was, not boring by any stretch of the imagination, but it's something, to get to that first rung of the ladder is awesome. But to then evolve and then expand beyond that, I think there's better ways and more efficient ways to do it, especially when you've got a bit of an audience, right? So that's another constraint I added. And how do I do that without doing that? How do I, do this stuff, right? And that's the constraints you need to put around it. Right, moving forward. So you don't necessarily need another strategy right now. You need aligned structure. You don't need another strategy right now. You need aligned structure. That is my take on it, is my personal opinion, right? And I know for myself, when I was hitting these roadblocks and mental roadblocks, emotional roadblocks, and business related roadblocks, because I couldn't figure things out, I couldn't evolve, and so I'd hit plateaus, and then it felt like I was working even harder to hit those kind of plateaus as well from a financial basis. It was tricky. It was real freaking tricky to work through. And then I realized, well, it's not necessarily that I need to deviate my strategy so far. Like, and you might think it is huge going from sales calls to no sales calls. But what you really need is a cleaner offer. I needed something that is more specific, that provides a very specific outcome to my clientele. I needed it to be like just really, really damn clean, basically. And that's what you need to have as well in order to get to that. You need a lighter conversion pathway, a lighter conversion path, right? So what I mean by that is, at the moment, I've got a number of different things that I'm doing. And so although that might seem like it's a confusing thing, every single one of those is designed to spit back to my back end. So I've actually only got one premium offer. It's called Monetise Your Tribe. And everything that I do, whether it be a YouTube video here or over on Facebook or Instagram, I create something. It's all roads are leading north back to my Monetise Your Tribe program. Okay, and so the cleaner conversion path, although from an external basis might seem a little bit messy because I've got a low ticket ad popping off over here, I've got lead ads popping off for a lead magnet over here, I've got this other retargeting thing happening over here, I've got my organic audience that I'm trying to grow over here, and that might seem like it's a lot and might seem kind of confusing, but it's actually a very simple pathway that allows me to collect buyers on the front end, pre-sale workshops, and then to send people to my back-end offers without the need to sell stuff, through sales calls, right? So it's a very clean conversion path. That's what I mean. Now, your situation might be significantly different. You might have a nice little webinar that pops off. You might have just a low-ticket funnel and then a mid-ticket ascension, and that's all you've got, right? I'm not saying you have to completely reinvent the wheel. You just have to make it more efficient and cleaner to get people from point A to point B, and customers and then clients, to build that relationship over and over again. You need a better use of your energy as well. That's something that I had a hard time accepting for a long time as well. But what I mean by that is, again, if you've got a cleaner offer and a cleaner conversion path, a lighter conversion path, then as a byproduct of that, you're probably going to have a little bit more energy, because then you've got those efficiencies working in cohesion with each other, which then allows you to, in my case, I cleared my calendar, right? So I don't take sales calls. So I don't have 5 book meetings every single day. I do whatever the heck I want, which then means that when my energy is good, which I'm recording this in the morning, I've got great energy, I can do stuff. If I feel tired later on, I'm not obliged to hop on a call, right? So that's a better use of my energy, in my opinion. So what I'll leave you with here is momentum is a gift, but scale is a skill. Okay, momentum is a gift, scale is a skill, and you've earned the right to build smarter at this point. If you've got off the ground floor and you're starting to get clients and you're starting to get clients consistently as well, then you've earned that right to basically do it smarter. And so the next level of growth is not about adding more stuff. And I know that might sound counterintuitive coming from someone like me who's, I feel like I'm all over the place at the moment. But like I say, there's a method to my madness, and interestingly enough, paradoxically, what I'm doing is actually subtracting as I go along, right? And I'll give you a real life example of that. I had a virtual assistant over on LinkedIn helping me to grow my audience over there. I've basically brought in everything in-house. I've said, you know what, I'm done being on every single platform or trying to be on every single platform. I've got Instagram, I've got YouTube. I knock out 2 to 3 of these videos each week on YouTube. It doesn't take that much. I really enjoy the format because I don't have to do crazy editing. I knock out a post on my profile, Facebook profile, every single day. Super easy, takes me 10 minutes. I knock out 3 to 5 posts inside my Facebook group every week, and I coincide with my Facebook post. I do an email every day as well, right? So not a huge amount. Every now and then I'll pick up my phone and do a reel. Don't have to. I do 2 to 3 of those a week. It's not super crazy. And so all that stuff, like I say, everything is like throwing hooks out into the ocean, aiming to catch those fish to ascend back to my Monetise Your Tribe program, right? Right. So if you've come to this point, thank you so much, by the way. Now, if you did want my help with any of this stuff, if you're finding bottlenecks in your business and you want someone that has been through the emotional pathway, the business pathway, that has basically helped a lot of people do exactly that to overcome some of these things. And I guess more importantly, you're sick of the cookie cutter, join my program, go through 1,000 modules, blah, 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 type approach, and you really just want to basically get the bespoke help you need in order to simplify and scale your business, then let's have a chat. So I'm going to leave links to my Instagram and my Facebook profile below. Feel free to shoot me a DM if you want to chat about anything. I'm pretty friendly. I like I say, I don't do sales calls, but what we can do is basically go through what you're working on, how I can help, and then, like I say, I don't believe in cookie cutter solutions, so I can create something that works specifically for your situation, no matter what that is, whatever business you're in. If you're an affiliate, I've had tons of experience doing that, created a 7-figure business through affiliate marketing, consulting, coaching, you name it. Let's get it sorted. So if that's of interest, love to have a chat. If not, completely cool. Hopefully you got value out of this video. And if you're not at that level yet where you're not looking at these things, you're kind of just thinking, all right, maybe something to work towards at some stage. Hopefully this has given you some value as well. Hit the comments, let me know your thoughts, and drop a like if you got value out of this. Appreciate you guys. See you in the next one.